Starfleet was not a dedicated military force, but whenever the Federation was under threat, it always fought well in the defense of Earth and its allies. In fact, it often outperformed the forces of heavily militarized empires on the battlefield. However, not every battle Starfleet fought ended in victory for the Federation, and over the centuries, Starfleet suffered some pretty brutal defeats. In this video, we will tell the stories of 6 of the worst defeats Starfleet ever endured. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. You'll find all these linked below, and while you're there, consider checking out Trek Central's Patreon and supporting us on there to help make these videos. Okay, engage. Our first major Federation defeat was the Battle of the Binary Stars, which took place on May 11th, 2256, as shown in Star Trek Discovery. This was the opening battle of the Federation-Klingon War, and it began after the Klingon ship, known as the Sarcophagus, commanded by Klingon visionary T'Kuvma, disabled a Federation interstellar relay in a binary star system on the edge of Federation space. This was a deliberate provocation on T'Kuvma's part. He believed that the Klingon Empire needed a war with the Federation in order to return to its former glory. T'Kuvma successfully provoked a standoff with a Federation vessel, USS Shenzhou, which alerted Starfleet to the Klingon incursion and summoned reinforcements. The Starfleet vessels arrived to back the Shenzhou up, while the 24 Klingon Great Houses each sent a single ship to reinforce the sarcophagus. The Klingons initially debated whether or not to unite their forces against the Federation, but T'Kuvma ultimately forced a hand by having the sarcophagus fire on the Shenzhou. Once these first shots were fired, all bets were off, and the battle began in earnest. Starfleet reinforced the Shenzhou with 11 starships of various classes in the Battle of the Binary Stars. The USS Europa, a Nimitz class, was commanded by Admiral Brett Anderson and acted as the flagship of the battle group. It fought alongside the Walker class USS Shenzhou, the Cardenas class USS Jaeger, the McGee class USS Shran, the Shepard class USS Ride, the USS Kerala, which was another Shepard class, the Engel classes USS Toplana Half and USS Earhart, the Mikulski class USS Clark and USS Sirks, and the Hoover class USS Dana and USS Edison. It initially faced a total of 25 Klingon ships, led by T'Kuvma's flagship, the Dreadnought Sarcophagus. The rest of the fleet consisted of a wide variety of vessels, including a massive cleave ship and a variety of battlecruisers, destroyers, and birds of prey. After Sarcophagus fired on the Shenzhou, the rest of the Starfleet task force moved to provide covering fire, destroying several of the smaller Klingon ships early on. But the tide of the battle quickly turned against Starfleet, and losses began to mount. Following the loss of several ships, Admiral Anderson arranged a ceasefire and attempted to negotiate with the Klingons, only for the Klingon cleave ship to ram and destroy the Europa, while Anderson was trying to negotiate. Admiral Anderson was killed and the Europa was destroyed, but it took the cleave ship with it. The battle resumed, and shortly thereafter, Klingon reinforcements arrived in the system, forcing the remaining Starfleet vessels to retreat. The first battle of the Federation-Klingon War was over, and it was only a taste of a beating the Federation would get over the next few months. There was a silver lining to the Battle of the Binary Stars. The crew of the Shenzhou crippled the sarcophagus and killed T'Kuvma before abandoning ship and retreating. However, this only made T'Kuvma a martyr, and the Klingon Great Houses ultimately united behind his cause. Unfortunately, Captain Philippa Georgiou of the USS Shenzhou was also killed in action. Ultimately, the Battle of the Binary Stars saw the loss of at least 8 starships and 8,000 Starfleet personnel, and united a dangerous enemy against the Federation. For our next battle, we're fast forward more than a century to 2367, the year of one of the most infamous battles in Starfleet history, the Battle of Wolf 359 from Star Trek The Next Generation. This battle saw Starfleet attempt to stop a Borg cube before it could make it to Earth, only to be utterly massacred in a battle that rivaled the worst defeats of the Dominion War for casualties. Prior to the battle, the Borg Collective had dispatched a single Borg cube into Federation space. It had completely assimilated several colonies before coming into contact with the USS Enterprise D, a ship that was already known to the Borg after an encounter at J25. Wanting to use a noteworthy human as a figurehead to facilitate the assimilation of humanity, the Borg kidnapped Jean-Luc Picard from the Enterprise and assimilated him. Picard became Locutus of Borg, and his extensive knowledge of Starfleet technology and tactics allowed the Borg cube to fend off the Enterprise's every assault, allowing it to proceed on a course for Earth. While the Enterprise stayed behind for repairs, Starfleet Admiral J.P. Hansen assembled a fleet of 40 ships to intercept the Borg cube, and he also sent out calls for reinforcements to the Klingon Empire, although the Klingons were unable to send any ships in time. Hansen's fleet took position at Wolf 359, a red dwarf located just a handful of light years away from Earth, and prepared to engage the Borg. The ships present were drawn from a variety of classes, from the Miranda class to the Galaxy class. The Borg, on the other hand, deployed just a single Borg cube under Locutus' command for the battle, but that one cube was enough. The Borg's superior technology and Locutus' knowledge of Starfleet tactics made the Battle of Wolf 359 a one-sided massacre. In a matter of minutes, the Borg destroyed 39 of the 40 assembled ships, killing or assimilating 11,000 souls in the process, all while the Borg cube emerged from battle unscathed. By the time the Enterprise arrived, all that remained of Wolf 359 was a vast debris field. Fortunately, the Borg cube was stopped after the Enterprise crew was able to recover Picard, reverse his assimilation, and exploit his link to the Borg Collective to destroy the ship, narrowly preventing an attack on Earth. The Battle of Wolf 359 was nonetheless a devastating blow to the Federation, with staggering losses of vessels and personnel. It was a testament to the terrifying power of the Borg, and the fact that there were enemies out in the depths of space that not even Starfleet was entirely prepared to face. The aftermath of Wolf 359 caused Starfleet to seriously think about the state of their fleet, which resulted in new warship designs, such as the Defiant class, Prometheus class, and eventually modern starships like the Sovereign class being designed and built. On the Trek Central YouTube channel, we've fully broken down the Battle of Wolf 359 and every starship participating in the historic engagement. A link to that is in the video description below. For our next battle, we have to fast forward to a few years in the early stages of the Dominion Cold War. In late 2370, the Jem'Hadar, the soldiers of the Dominion, captured Commander Benjamin Sisko of Deep Space Nine while he was on a camping trip to the Gamma Quadrant, prompting Starfleet to launch a rescue mission. They sent a small strike force through the Bajoran wormhole, commanded by Captain Kirk of the Galaxy-class starship USS Odyssey. The Odyssey was accompanied by two runabouts from Deep Space Nine, Mekong and the Orinoco. Sisko managed to escape Jem'Hadar captivity on his own, and he made it back to the runabout he had come to the Gamma Quadrant in, the Rio Grande. However, even as he made it to link up to Federation forces, 3 Jem'Hadar fighters appeared and engaged the Odyssey and its escorts. The fighters' weapons were based on a phased Polaron beams, which were capable of piercing the Odyssey's shields, and the 3 attack craft began inflicting serious damage on the much larger vessel. Captain Kirk ordered his crew to divert power from shields to weapons, and the Odyssey and the runabouts began concentrating their fire on a single Jem'Hadar fighter, but it was of little use. The Jem'Hadar continued to concentrate on the Odyssey, and they quickly crippled the ship. Once the Rio Grande linked up with the task force, Captain Kirk ordered all forces to retreat back to the wormhole. As they did, however, one of the Jem'Hadar fighters rammed itself into the Odyssey, completely destroying both ships. The entire crew of the Odyssey was killed, as was the crew of the Jem'Hadar fighter. The rest of the task force was able to escape, but the destruction of the Odyssey was a major shock to Starfleet, a true show of the Dominion's power and the Jem'Hadar's resolve. The destruction of the Odyssey wasn't a major battle in the grand scheme of things, but it was a shocking defeat that had a significant effect on morale. Galaxy-class starships, like the Odyssey, were some of the toughest vessels in the Alpha Quadrant, and yet a trio of much smaller Jem'Hadar fighters had destroyed one easily and with exceptional ruthlessness. It was also only a taste of what was to come for Starfleet in the next few years. Thankfully, the Odyssey had offloaded her civilian and non-essential crew members at Deep Space Nine before proceeding into the Gamma Quadrant. The loss of the starship proved 2 things to Starfleet. 1, the Dominion were not messing around, and 2, even the Galaxy class was not able to defend itself against them. Our next set of battles all took place during the Dominion War. We'll begin with the first battle of the war, the second battle of Deep Space Nine, as shown in Starship Deep Space Nine. This battle took place at the end of 2373, following weeks of rising tensions brought on by the Cardassian Union choosing to join the Dominion. This had granted the Dominion a foothold in the Alpha Quadrant, and ever since, the Dominion had been regularly dispatching fleets through the Bajoran wormhole to Cardassian space, beginning a steady military build-up. In order to slow this build-up, the Federation began blocking off the wormhole, assembling a field of self-replicating mines at its exit, while the station's defences were prepared for a battle. Sisko asked Starfleet for reinforcements, anticipating a Dominion response, but he received none. Federation forces could only rely on the USS Defiant, General Martok's Klingon bird of prey, the IKS Rotaran, and Deep Space Nine's built-in defences. While the Defiant finished deploying the mines, the Rotaran patrolled the edges of the Bajor system, and before long, it picked up the approach of a sizable Dominion fleet. The Dominion had dispatched 300 ships, a mix of Jem'Hadar battlecruisers and fighters, supported by Cardassian Gala-class destroyers and Hideki-class fighters, under the command of Weyoun and Gul Dukat. Upon arriving at Deep Space Nine, they demanded Captain Sisko's surrender. He refused, and the Dominion War formally began. Dukat ordered 5 wings of Jem'Hadar fighters to take out the Defiant and stop it from completing the minefield, while the rest of the fleet focused on Deep Space Nine. Dukat and Weyoun had expected to easily break through the station's shields, as Starfleet shields had been previously proven useless against Dominion weaponry, but they soon learned firsthand that this weakness had been corrected. The station's defensive batteries then returned fire, destroying several Jem'Hadar ships. But the Dominion fleet kept up the assault, eventually bringing down the station's shields and destroying many of its weapon systems. Simultaneously, the Retarn destroyed the Jem'Hadar fighters bound for the Defiant, allowing it to complete the minefield. With the Bajoran wormhole successfully sealed, Captain Sisko ordered all Starfleet personnel to evacuate to the Defiant and Retarn, which they then retreated from the system. Jem'Hadar and Cardassian soldiers then boarded Deep Space Nine, capturing the station for the Dominion. This battle was a resounding defeat for Starfleet, resulting in the capture of Deep Space Nine, but it came with a few silver linings. The Federation didn't lose any ships, at least, while the Jem'Hadar and Cardassians had lost more than 50. Sisko had been able to sabotage Deep Space Nine's computers before it was abandoned, and the minefield, sealing off a Bajoran wormhole, had been successfully completed, cutting off Dominion reinforcements from the Gamma Quadrant. Perhaps most importantly, Starfleet had used the battle as a diversion, while the bulk of its forces destroyed a key Dominion shipyard above Taurus 3. The second battle of Deep Space Nine was more of a sacrifice than a defeat on Starfleet's part, even if it was still a crushing blow. While it was a defeat with the capture of Deep Space Nine, the result was a strategic victory for the Federation. Our next battle was much different. Another Dominion War battle from Deep Space Nine, the raid on San Francisco, or known as the Breen attack on Earth, happened late in the Dominion War in 2375. It marked the entrance of the Breen Confederacy into the war on the Dominion side, and it was an enormous blow to morale for the Federation and its allies, being the first successful attack on Earth in centuries. We don't see this battle on screen, so there is very little footage. However, the short non-canonical story, 11 hours out, expands on what happened during the Breen's raid on Earth. This battle began after a Breen agent seized control of DP-7, an orbital defense platform assigned to protect North America, while 3 warships disguised as Tellite freighters fired and disabled Starbase 1. The Breen began jamming Starfleet's communications to slow the response, and the 3 warships opened fire on the city of San Francisco. Their primary target was Starfleet headquarters, which they dealt heavy damage to, but they also fired on targets all across the city and the surrounding area, intending to incur heavy civilian casualties. Shortly after the beginning of the attack, the USS Enterprise E, commanded by Commander Will Riker, arrived in the system. It used its tractor beam to free the USS Columbia from space dock, following which the Breen-controlled DP-7 began firing on the 2 ships. The Enterprise engaged DP-7, while the Columbia took on 3 ships firing on San Francisco. Captain Jean-Luc Picard, who was on Earth's surface at the time, beamed up to DP-7 and liberated it from the Breen hijacker, following which the Enterprise and Columbia destroyed all attacking Breen vessels. The raid on San Francisco was pretty inconsequential, military speaking, but it did kill hundreds of thousands of civilians and dealt a massive blow to the Federation's morale. Technically, the battle was a Starfleet military victory, since all attacking Breen ships were destroyed, but the attack had accomplished the Breen's objective, to put the Federation on notice and to crush its morale. Starfleet also failed to protect Earth from harm, the first time this had happened in centuries. These factors led to the attack going down in history as one of Starfleet's darkest days. But not even the raid on San Francisco can compare to what might be Starfleet's most devastating defeat of all, the Second Battle of Chintoka, also from Deep Space Nine. This battle took place shortly after the raid on San Francisco in 2375, and it saw the Chintoka system, which the Federation and its allies had taken from the Dominion a year prior, reconquered by a joint Dominion-Breen task force. Ever since the first Battle of Chintoka, the Dominion had been fighting to retake the system. The Federation alliance only had a small grip on Chintoka when the Breen showed up and utterly destroyed the greatly weakened Allied fleet in the system. Unwilling to let Chintoka fall so easily, the Allies dispatched a fleet of 312 ships for a counterattack. Captain Sisko commanded his fleet from the USS Defiant, and General Martok commanded the Klingon forces. It consisted of a mix of Starfleet, Klingon, and Romulan warships. Alongside the Defiant, Starfleet deployed Nebula classes, Galaxy class, Steamrunner class, Miranda class, Excelsior class, Akira class, and Saber class starships for the battle, as well as at least 10 wings of attack fighters, while the Romulans deployed Dejadex-class warbirds, and the Klingons sent out Vorcha-class, Katinga-class cruisers, and Burrell-class birds of prey. This armada was opposed by a fleet of Breen interceptors, backed by Jem'Hadar and Cardassian warships. As the two fleets closed to engage one another, the Breen vessels opened fire with a weapon unknown to Starfleet, an energy dissipator that drained target vessels of all power. In short order, they completely disabled nearly every ship in the Allied fleet, allowing the Dominion ships to begin destroying them with impunity. The crews of these ships could do nothing but flee to the escape pods. The entire Allied fleet was destroyed, and the Dominion and the Breen were victorious. Of the 312 ships that had been dispatched to Tintoka, 311 were destroyed, including the USS Defiant. Only a single Klingon ship, the IKS Gitang, had escaped, as the chief engineer had unknowingly rendered it immune to the Breen energy dissipator prior to the battle. Although those Allied personnel who had made it to their vessel's escape pods got away, the Dominion leaders decided to let them live to spread the story of the battle. Many were unable to get to escape craft in time, and Allied casualties were high as a result. This massacre may as well have been the worst defeat of the Dominion War for the Allies, as they had lost their whole fleet and huge numbers of personnel, while only a handful of Breen ships had been destroyed in the opening stages of the attack. So that's some of Starfleet's worst battle defeats. Of course, there have been many engagements throughout the history of the Star Trek universe, but we'd not want this list to last for years. Some key events that come to mind is the Battle of Sector 001, which was a victory, but it did cause a crippling amount of damage. There was also the battle in the Tyro system, which saw the loss of 98 ships, either destroyed or damaged beyond repair. During the Dominion War, the peaceful planet Beta Z was also occupied by Dominion forces in 2374. So, those are some of the most brutal defeats Starfleet had ever endured. Perhaps you know of a major defeat in Star Trek history. Let us know in the comments below. If you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media, join our community Discord server, or perhaps consider checking out our Patreon to support the Trek Central channel directly. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.